He's got his prop.
Rick hit the nail on the head when he called Steve the master planner. I actually found out I was speaking here today about 8 years ago when Steve informed me that I would be speaking about So how did my almost 35-year friendship with Steve start? Started when I was 19 years old and I was refereeing basketball. Little Steven was playing, and this big, rough guy was sitting in the bleachers. And I'm refereeing, and every time I went down that end, Steve had some suggestions for me. In a nice way, of course. That's what Steve would do. Finally, between quarters, I went over to Steve and I asked him, do you want to ref? I mean, I'm volunteering here. And he said, no, that's okay. I think you'll finally figure it out. What I realized about Steve's relationship with umpires and referees, it really came from his great sense of fairness and justice, and he hated injustice. So really, when he was yelling at that 9-year-old kid, it was a sense of nobility that he had that. A few months later, young Steven was trying out for the travel baseball team I coached. I have to admit, for a moment, I was like, do I really want to take this kid? But Steven was really good. He was a really good player. And so I kept Steven, and Steve became my assistant coach. And ever since then, even if he wasn't in the dugout or on the sidelines with me, he was the biggest confidant and supporter I ever had. I really believe that without Steve's intense belief in me as a coach, I would never stuck with it, especially in those early years when the wins were really tough to come by. And Steve would always correctly point out that we only lost because the umpires stink. It was the first team that we coached together, though, that really changed everything because we had such a fun time coaching that when the season was coming to an end, we didn't want it to end. So we decided we were going to take these kids on a trip. We had no idea how to do it or what to do. And we rented this big RV from someplace out in Western Mass. I'll still never forget Steve driving me down the highway, and I was like, we can probably kill these kids. This was before, like, the internet. We didn't have cell phones, Expedia, Hotwire, any of that stuff. We had to do everything by hand. We had no GPS. So we had these for the young people in the audience, like these things called maps. And the thing about Steve, and Jenny can probably relate to this, if you're trying to figure out where to go, you take the 101 or the 405, and if I knew, if I was driving and I knew exactly the way to go, Steve would be like, nah, I think we should take this one instead. But when I genuinely didn't know, and I'm like, Steve, should it be the 101, 405? Gee, Bob, I don't know. So, but he always was my co-pilot for all those years. And even though he didn't come on every trip that we did, I did a trip every year since that time, except for the COVID year. And Steve loved those trips so much that even though he never coached basketball with me, he came on about a half a dozen of those trips as well. I have so many memories from those trips, like the time he got pulled over in the RV in Indiana. He got clocked by the radar by a plane, and Steve did not like that. He didn't think it was fair. He was like, no, you gotta get me on the ground. And he basically told the officer that next thing I know, I'm sitting there watching this interaction, next thing I know, they're taking Steve out of the RV and they're putting him in the back of the cruiser. And I'm like, how am I going to tell Jen that I got Steve arrested in Indiana? Somewhere there's a picture of that, because I jumped out and I snapped it. Our first trip to the West Coast, we took 16 kids, and 4 of us as coaches took them out to California. Started in Las Vegas. It was a scorching hot day, 105 degrees. And we had to figure out what we were going to do while John Rice and I went to get the RVs. So we determined that Steve would stay with the luggage while one of the other assistant coaches took the kids to Circus. And Steve sat there in the scorching sun, which we thought would be like 15 to 20 minutes, while we would go on a map. It looked like this far to go get the RVs. It was like 3 hours. And Steve sat, he was in black pants, shirt and tie, and of course we had no cell phones, so we couldn't tell him, Steve, it's going to be another half hour, another 45 minutes, so we had to keep looking at all the cars coming over. Is that them now? Is that them now? We finally came, and he was drenched in sweat, and I thought, this guy's going to probably kill us. And literally all he said when we finally got there was, "Can you get me a cold Dr. Pepper?" By the way, when he was driving the RV, all that really mattered was that he had his Dr. Pepper, some Twizzlers, some kind of snack. I never really acquired the taste for this drink, but he certainly loved that. He loved Texas, and was so proud of that, which might be why he told me that his favorite trip was when we went to Texas and we visited with his sister Bobby. I'll still remember we played this game called Balderdash, and I don't know if you played it. Bobby was very good at it. I think I could get her in trouble because a lot of her creative definitions that she came up with they're not really appropriate for churches. We had so much fun that day, but what really struck me was the relationship that Steve had with his sister, and it was so genuine, so meaningful, and he loved both of his sisters so dearly. There are so many stories from the trips. He loved visiting all the ballparks. In fact, I think we visited 22 parks. I was counting them up. So many memories. But I think more important to Steve in those ballparks was in every part of the country we would go, they would have some kind of unique fast food. He loved the fast food. In fact, we'd be driving down the road, even after we just already ate, like, well, Wendy's. Let's face it, he loved fast food. He loved slow food, too. He would be so annoyed when he found a great new fast food place, but they didn't have his Dr. Pepper. So he'd be like torn, like, In-N-Out Burger, really good, no Dr. Pepper. So, my final trip story, we're at the Hoover Dam. Steve, I don't know if you were on this trip or not, if you remember this, but Steve always took the pictures on our trip. And he literally stood up on the side of the Hoover Dam. If he fell, it was like, goodbye. And a police officer saw this. He's arranging the kids, and the police officer comes over on like a little speaker and goes, "Sir, you have to move." He's like, "No, I haven't gotten the picture yet." And I was like, "You have to move." "No, I'm not." And he's literally getting the picture, and I thought he was going to end up in the damn jail. Our baseball coaching tradition was to celebrate wins at Poopsies with Rick Swanson and John Rice. It was our time to rehash the game and enjoy our favorite pizza. The four of us were quite a team for a very long time. We resurrected that coaching friendship when we took over at Hingham, and together we won a couple of league titles. Steve loved baseball and every team he coached. He drove umpires crazy with his incredible knowledge of the rules. And contrary to what a lot of people may think, he actually didn't argue very much. But he would grumble under his breath the entire game. He would give them dirty looks. But he did have tremendous respect for the people, anybody who was involved in helping kids play baseball. Here's a top 10 list of the things that Steve loved about baseball. The lineup card. Steve, that was a thing of beauty. It was our chance, the beginning of us trying to out-coach the other team. A player, number 2, was a player who wore his uniform correctly. And if they didn't wear their uniform correctly, Steve let them know. Helping any kid, anywhere, just get a little bit better at the game of baseball. Our players absolutely adored him. And I used to think to myself, is somebody going to ever tell him off? Because he was pretty tough. He was like nitpicking on a lot of things, but the kids just loved him. Number 4, appeal plays, because again, it goes back to the rule book. And the rule book was number 5. He knew it better than everybody in the ballpark. The symmetry of baseball, the beauty, the perfect distances, 90 feet, 60 feet, 6 inches. Number 7, pick off plays and stealing signs. Number 8, a beautiful batting cage and pitching machine. Number 9, the Excel spreadsheet with the stats. Number 10, celebrating a win at Poopsies. I must confess, he also liked celebrating the losses at Poopsies too. When I think of Steve, I do think of baseball and the trips, but what I really think about is how much he loved his family and was so proud of all of them. I actually remember the first time I met Jen, and I remember thinking, oh my goodness, how beautiful this woman is. And I got to know her, and she was even more beautiful on the inside than she was on the outside. And I would literally just ask Steve, and I would just say, how? And it became a running joke for years with Steve and I. Stephen, your dad was so proud of you. He loved every minute he spent on the fields, sharing your love for baseball. But more than that, he would tell me often how proud he was of you as a father, you and your wife Jennifer building such a tremendous family. He would be with you always. And Allison, since you were that little girl mocking me with my signs and how I would call the plays, you were the light of your dad's life. I mean, he literally looked at you in a different way. Last year I was trading texts with him, just saying how much I love having you as a coach at Whitman Hanson. And he asked me, like, what makes you such a great coach? I told him just how positive you are, and whether it's your students at Whitman Middle or your players, just hearing your name literally puts a smile on their face. I can tell you that day that I couldn't have given him a case of Dr. Pepper, so he wouldn't have been any more happy because he just loved you so much. and Sean, he was so thankful that Allison found you. And husband and father that you are. Just always remember that. Because that's what he was about. Steve accomplished much in his life. He served our country, built an amazing career at Polaroid, won a lot of baseball games as a coach, but it's his family that's the top of the list. With his grandchildren making the last decade even more special to him. I know Allison's daughters were born just a day after my birthday, and so after Steve passed, I was scrolling through some of the text messages, and it was amazing. And every year on my birthday, wherever I was, he would send me a text message. I just remember the secret the other day when Jen told me that it was because the grandchildren's birthday is the day after. I would find him in my office often at school, like going through my desk, like taking my quarters and my loose change. I'm like, Steve, I know you're on Social Security now, but if you need some money, I can help you out. And he'd be like, no, I'm getting it for the grandkids. They say the best gift a father can give his children is to love their mother. Steve lived that with every fiber of his being. Jenny, love you so much. Your kids and grandkids couldn't have better role models. What a healthy, happy relationship should be, and what a life the two of you shared and built together. I wish we still had him here. From a selfish standpoint, there are a few friends in our lives that are as honest, reliable, dependable, and loving as Steve. He had my back and he believed in me. He would literally give me the shirt off his back. We would bicker and argue, but I can honestly tell you in all our years of friendship, we never had a single fight. I'm going to miss him like I know all of you will, in your own special way. So Jen, I used to joke about how lucky Steve was to have you. He definitely was. But today I'll admit that you were pretty lucky too. So when you all look under your seats for the cold Dr. Pepper, just reach under there and everybody grab it and have a little toast. I'm just kidding.
Steve's up there with you right now.
Steve did that to me.
Yes, he did.
I do want to propose a toast with this drink of Dr. Pepper. Steve Swinhart, husband, father, grandfather, uncle, a friend, and a coach. We meet on the diamond in heaven. Until then, we all love you.
Cheers.